I'm coming from a, I would say, cylinder lock manufacturer, so don't be disappointed when my view is very special. But maybe it will help open your eyes also, because we have already from Ivan, in our market, in European, the offline component is quite important. We see day by day more quantities replacing mechanical lock cylinders, and not everyone will wire every door, so maybe it will help some of you to get this view from a guy who's doing locks in here. So, okay, what I'm doing, as already said, I'm working since my finishing university career for Dole. I started with really building electronic cylinders, so that's my basic history. And luckily, since 12 years, I'm responsible for the whole R&D part, from mechanical cylinders via mechatronic cylinders to software. So the whole scope. And regarding standardization, so there must be a reason that Ivan asked me. So okay, I'm a member of OSS Technical Board, and also really guided the OSSNA working group, and I'm also active in some other working groups from AGE regarding smart door locks, regarding DIN standardizations and so on. So I hope I have some basic knowledge on that, and so on. I try to introduce that. I can skip that. We are talking here about access control. I'm focusing only on the physical access control and just on the parts which are relevant for that, like physical tokens, maybe mobile, but not the rest. So don't wonder if, as I said, this is restricted. But the topic is so broad and we can jump so deep, so if you can give me 5 hours, I will fill it. So, okay, types of standards. So what do we have? If we go to European standards, so it means European norms, we have really clear product standards. So that are really standards. What is an idea? Basic requirements for products, which allows you as a maybe end user to use a lock from a different manufacturer and it works in the same door somehow. And that means standardization of physical interfaces, dimensions, and so on, and specification of classification grades. What do we have when we talk about physical access? We have, of course, cylinders, mainly used because that's really locking of doors, not just opening. We have here some standards, the N1303 for mechanic, the 15684 for mechatronics, and even some German norms which are not European standards. And you have products like that. Don't wonder, I use only DOM products because I have only the rights for them. Next one, we have handles, more commonly used. You use it from hotels, we see it here. So we see more and more, especially office buildings, equipped with a lot of mechatronic door handles. Here we have very old, also norm standards from the mechanical handle, which are still influencing the mechatronic one. There's the 16867, and then there are even some special things, which is also, again, pure mechanical security fittings. So then you have locks, which is not so in this my scope, because the lock is not reading credentials. So when we talk about interoperability, the lock is the most pure mechanical stuff. So let's give it. And then you have, of course, the same stuff for padlocks, mechatronic padlocks as well. So if you have these standards, what they bring to you. So at the outcome of the standards is something like you get a classification, like category of use, environmental, security, and so on. So to give you 2 examples, you take here as an example a security fitting, then this is a classification key if a manufacturer really does a product according to the EN 16867. And there you can see, okay, heavy use or high durability, this is not relevant, it's applicable in fire and smoke doors, highest environmental grade, and so on. So that means you get a lot of performance parameters out of these norms, but nothing regarding interoperability. There's nothing written what kind of credential I read. There's just a credential security like that, which is really a very basic specification. The same you have for cylinders, according to EN 15684. You have here the same, more or less the same scheme. So that means that helps you if you are maybe an installer and you have to provide, talking to NIS2, I have to provide some kind of security depending on the risk. I will come to that later. You have to choose the right products, not only interoperability, but also mechanical security. And then you may think that you need maybe here's the highest grade regarding security attack measures, depending on which door you secure with that door, with that cylinder. If you use it inside in the office door, it's maybe not relevant. If you put it in your main entrance, it could be very relevant. So that is something what you get from the European norms on these kind of products. But it's much more complex. If you're a manufacturer like us, it's not just applying these norms. There's a lot of, I would say, side standards which are also applicable. So that means if you want to provide and use a handle or a cylinder for doors under special applications, there are standards like for fire and smoke protection doors. There are, of course, standards how to do the fire resistance test. There are standards well known, we know panic and so on, and emergency exits is quite important, EN 179 as well. So again, European norms which must be fulfilled because otherwise you cannot install the product with the right doors. So quite important on that as well. And at the end, that's really security, we talk about burglary resistance. There's one European standard, EN 1627. I just choose, I'm not allowed to do that, so you cannot publish the sheet. I just take it out of the standard. To give you an example, where you see that at the end, that's the European way, we can combine products of different manufacturers, like a cylinder from manufacturer A, lock manufacturer B, handle set manufacturer C, and at the end, by combination of the grades of the different parts, you can get a grade, a security grade of the door. So that means at your home, I guess at your main entrance, you want to have not an unsecured door. So if you hopefully have to at home RC2 or better RC3 door. So if you want to know what kind of cylinder and lock you should have in the door, you can read that standard and then find the right product which will fulfill that. How they are programmed, what they read, is not answered here. It's just physical dimensions, security, environmental, and all this stuff. So that's the outcome here. Finally, this slide. What does that mean if I write EN 16867? Of course, it depends. Still, the manufacturer can say, hey, my product is according to EN 16867 or whatever tested, and do internal tests. So you can believe him or not. Next one is, of course, going to a test institute, which gives you a one-time test report. So like going to Felbert, quite famous in Germany, PIF, they're testing one product or 20 products that they fulfill these standards, but they did not say that you do it in 10 years it's the same, or that the product will fulfill it yearly. And then that is handled by certificate, like from VDS, or in the Netherlands from SKG, that they're really first checking the actual product, and then they do maybe yearly a test, buying just standard products and checking again if you fulfill them. So that means, of course, the certificate has the highest level of reliability that these kind of products fulfill this standard. So what is the progress activities here? Honestly, European standardization in mechanical business is very boring and takes a long time. As I said, I'm sometimes part of that. Hard for me, I'm not a mechanical guy. So what we see, something happens regarding here classification keys. There is really an improvement in credential security, that there is a new view. But there are still really lock manufacturers at the table, really in the mechanical way. So don't expect that we get outcome of that, which helps us in the electronic, interoperability, IT, or something like that. What is also happening, that they expand the standards, that they include some more national parts, coming mainly from Germany, to make it European-wise, and that they maybe even implement new standards, e.g. for key turner, like Nuki and so on. But as said, there will never be a standard which in European which gives you a product that you know now it's NIS2 certified or something like that. Never. So, then we have, besides European standards, some national requirements, especially on cylinders and also on handles. We have some, I would say, more high-level national requirements. Coming directly to the examples, especially in the DACH market, Germany, Switzerland, and so on, we have BDS. Then we have, I would say, guidelines like 21556 for cylinders, where you can get grades A, Z, B, BZ, and C, which is also mainly regarding durability and mechanical security. Then you have also, of course, standards regarding access control, I guess, well known here in this room, like the BDS 2C58. Then you have for the Benelux country, SKG, there you have also 1, 2, 3 star for cylinders, handles. So again, that means security, mainly mechanical, a little bit electromechanical, also manipulation like high voltage, magnets, and this stuff, but security on the products. Then you have in French CNPP, LDP, there is a test cylinders with locks, and you can have special things in UK from this BSI there, where they really like this human intervention test, so it's really hard to do a product where you're 100% sure to survive it, because they can do everything. And if you have enough time, then normally there's never 100% security. What is the summary on that? These product standards define that the product will be compatible. So you can put it in your door with an existing lock or something like that. So that means it works in for pedestrian door sets, fulfilling the standards. There's nothing on interoperability, only on mechanical. So that means these are basic requirements and needs. So that means if you are not a cylinder manufacturer like me, you can say I can forget it. On the other side, if you deliver solutions, you have to deal also with the cylinders, handles, and the requirements on the door as well. So maybe it was not too boring so far. So what do we have also regarding standards? We have regulations. We have European guidelines like CE conformity. Don't read that. I just took an example of a CE conformity, what I signed personally, which is according to our cylinder. You see what is part of that. Just because of the electronic part, we have to have a lot of things to check, but there are mainly EMC requirements. Again, there's nothing interoperability, it's just that we are not, I would say, exposing high fields which are maybe critical for humans and so on. And of course, safety and a little bit environmental stuff. What happens here, and I come later to that, that's the former R&TTE guideline, which was for, I would say, radio equipment, is now coming to red. And I will not go in details because we need hours. Because of red, there is now a link to CRA, which is the Cyber Resilience Act. That means in the future, products which are, here it's written, indirect or direct, logical or physical, somehow connected to a network, they have to fill the Cyber Resilience Act. And that means we all, not longer doing mechanical stuff, have to have a lot of cybersecurity requirements. And that is something what, again, does not help the interoperability, but that is a part of your question for the NIS2. Because, what is the Cyber Resilience Act? So it shall be into force in October, so I'm not sure, I did not investigate yesterday if it's now active or not. Fact is that later, 3 years later, all new products will come to the market, has to be applied to that. And that means now we are coming to that. That is really product related. NIS2 has nothing to do with the product specification. NIS2 is a guideline for the company who is falling under NIS2. But the products we are bringing to the market has to fulfill the CRR in the future, and it means cybersecurity by design. So also on product level, already risk assessment. So to do what I have to consider during design, development, manufacturing. Really, I imagine if there's a risk that during production, maybe you do it in China, so someone can change the firmware to have a backdoor or something like that. That must be taken into account. If you deliver a toy, maybe it's not relevant, so you can take it out. If you're providing a security cylinder, maybe it's a high risk, so you have to do something against. So, and that has also to be documented. Honestly, I have no idea what I have to do there, but it will be challenging for all of us, I'm sure. So documentation is a big topic. Then we have all to provide really updates, so patch management over the normal service life. That's written 5 years. I guess we all know in our business, product lifetime is longer, 10 years. So imagine patch management for 10 years. I'm sure you will not get a firmware update for a 10 years old electronic cylinder nowadays, mostly. So then a lot of things around here. So that means on product level, we have really to take all these cybersecurity measures into account. We cannot exploit new products with known vulnerability levels, so that we have really to document somehow. Security by default configuration, so no universal passwords. All these things are now really clear. I hope you all have done it already since years. I'm sure not all of us has done it 20 years ago. Not sure what happens in between. And we have especially all the data which is somehow in the product has to be stored. Protect the integrity. Only the needed data, that is data saving and which is relevant. Of course, we have also deal with confidentiality, with encryption and all this stuff. So that means the requirement on the products, just due to European regulation, will be much higher than today. Today is our responsibility to deliver a secure product. Now that will really change a lot. So where we see it first time, it's strange from my perspective. Really, I'm a lock manufacturer coming to access control, and everyone, if you talk privately, I guess everyone would say, hey, access control, you do super secure things. On the one hand, we have vegan protocol. On the next hand, a lot of other weaknesses everyone knows around the table. And then we have already European regulation for consumer IoT. I hope you all know these standards, this 603, 645. which is the baseline requirement for cybersecurity consumer IoT. And we all know consumer electronics drive someone into professional things. So we now get the same requirements. And they have clearly written what you have to do. There are no universal default password. You have to manage reports of vulnerabilities. You have really time frames where you have to inform your customers about that if you detect it. You have to keep software updated, how to store sensitive parameters. All these things which should be well known in our business are coming really into, we have to do it. And we have to document it somehow. But again, it solves not the issue of the interoperability. And there is, of course, also a test spec behind. So that means there is also an idea how to test these new requirements. The first outcome, why I don't know that, luckily, at the beginning it was a boring process, but I was joining the ARGE group and to work on a standard for smart door locking devices. Years ago, we were all, forced that a lot of Chinese products coming to the market, and we want, of course, to have a good level of quality into the European market, what we can do. And then the idea, okay, we cannot stand in the European Union, it's not allowed to do a new standard for the same stuff. So there is these standards, 603, 645, and it is a so-called frame standard. Now they want that we deliver vertical standards for different applications. And smart door lock, so your home entrance locking, is one of these verticals they identified, and I worked with all these people around the table here on these standards for smart door locking devices. It's still not so well known, and I guess still not applicable so far, but we really checked how to apply these, I would say, frame standard, and then to enrich it with the things we know better. And just to give an example, at the end we identified that the smart door lock, your home entrance, can be locked by different things, by a full lock set, by a security fitting, by just a standard electronic cylinder, by electronic cylinder with these kind of proprietary keys, by these nice key turners with the cylinders, and so on. And we identified, and that is written in this guideline, that besides the cybersecurity requirements, you have then to apply to different grades in the European standards to get a secure product. So that was the first outcome. So to combine European norms, European standards, for products in combination with the cybersecurity stuff. As said, it's published. As no one is requesting it, nothing will happen. But here we could really see that these new cybersecurity requirements are already into place for consumer things. So therefore, it will come for our products as well. Here, that's really the most critical, challenging question. I was also really checking the last weeks. I was asked by thousands of sales colleagues what we have to do. Are we NIS2 full compliant? No. No and yes. Our product cannot directly fulfill. It's not like going to VDS and getting VDS-A. NIS2 means, it's just describing that now we have much more companies calling like critical infrastructure. It's not critical, but important entities. Like my company, we are a manufacturer, 400 people, 70 million euro turnover. We are now, because of production company, falling under NIS2. And that means now we have to secure that we can produce, that no data is lost, and all these things. We have to have physical access, maybe fences or protection, all this stuff. And all these things, no one writes what you need. There's never written that you need a VDSB cylinder. There's not written that you need an access control with everything online. You have to do risk management to check what are the attack vectors, how risky are they, how can you accept that, can you ignore that, can you deal with that, and what kind of products you can apply. And therefore, as said, normally if a company now asks you, falling under NIS2, to build out a security access control system, they have more or less to answer this question. They have to get a security expert from my point of view, and then you can maybe provide different kind of solutions with different kind of products. But there's never written, from my personal perspective, that you need now a VDSB cylinder. I hope we have it, but don't know. It's really based on risk analysis and needed resilience. But of course, that may implicitly create new product acceptance levels because the installer is responsible more than the manufacturer. And the installer will move, I would say, responsibilities to the supplier. So that means all of us who are supplier will maybe get new requirements just due to that, not because it's written, but people will ask for them. Oh. So, summary, extended IT requirements. there is no product specific product, no interoperability. So I will, yeah, okay, but here I have to talk. We already heard it. We have some industrial standards, I would call it. I know OSDP is already known under EN, so there is even more than just an industrial standard. But we have already clock data. It's like a standard because everyone knows how to use it. We have OSDP, we have on the reader side PHP crypt, we have SSCP maybe published and so on. From my perspective, there's still an issue because they're coming initially defined by one company, driven by that. Sometimes there's a lack of documentation, there might be even licensing topics and other topics as well. So it's better, much better than proprietary stuff, but it's still not answering all the questions. In the access control business, there's luckily some companies founding years ago together these OSS association. And here we have, I just write them full members. I guess all are here more around the table and so on. And what I can say, and we heard it already in Ivan's presentation, I got it already today with all the talks. If we have to include offline cylinders and I guess and offline handles, there's only this one way. There's nothing else besides the proprietary stuff. And that's the only standard which is really answering the question not only that they can speak to each other, that they understand each other. So that means the OSS coded card really, the cylinder knows this person has access at which time, how, and so on. And not just, I would say, proprietary definition. So what is happening here on OSS standard offline? There will be, of course, a topic of certifying because there is still a lack. That there are still some, I would say, incompatibilities. There's a continuous improving, like there's an idea now to have a secure key transport. There is an idea to include locker modes and so on. On OSSMA, I was responsible at the end. Honestly, and we started with several MCPs and most of them were gone. So we have a standard which defines the right idea. That means access by mobile devices to offline logs without programming the logs up front, because the logs maybe in the trafo station, they are maybe not connected to the network, and I need to provide access over the air without again programming the log. And that is still the major need. And here, of course, we have to look what is coming up now with new standards. If it's a real standard or driven by big players like Google, Apple, Aliro, we heard several names. So that means here we will see what will happen. And of course, also here, we saw it also here, there may be on the reader side, also an idea to have beside OSDP, PHP crypt more and more common because it will be published under OSS brand, so having also a common standard on that. A lot of things are missed, what you can have in access control, so we will skip it. So therefore I will just more or less conclude by that. That is what comes to EVA. At the end, people think on standards, also on interoperability. As I said, on the mechanical side, it's right. By fulfilling a cylinder according to EN 1303 and a lock fulfilling, what was it, 15685, these products will work together in the door. So, but doesn't answer the question on interoperability. On one hand, when I want to say, okay, you need to have a same physical interface at some point. That's one solution. So minimum if you connect hardware to hardware, so reader to door controller, something like that. Then of course, they have to speak the same minimum language that, hey, I answer and I question, you will give the answer. And so that is of course handled perfectly maybe by R405 with OSDP and some other stuff. Or maybe by host card emulation between the smartphone and the reader. But it's not explained what is sent and how to interpret the data. And that is at the end what we need if we want to have easy interoperability on product level without, I would say, a software around transforming data. Then we have also to agree on a data model. And that is what I can say now. For the moment, only OSS is answering that question for offline logs. For all the online stuff, you agree on the credential ID and then everyone processes the data somehow. So, and but on data model, I guess there's nothing else. And then of course, if you integrate, maybe just to conclude that, you have hardware, mechatronic, wall readers, credentials at the end. You have software, we saw from Ivan, managing permissions and so on, and they come to the same thing, luckily. Maybe they are feed now by other things, Active Directory and so on. So, and what kind of interfaces do we have? On the cylinders and locks and so on, actually you can take also products from other brands. They have RFID for the cards. Most of them have automatically by that NFC. Most of them provide BLE for mobile keys, for configuration and so on, and maybe some other wireless stuff. But even if it's Zigbee also just explains how to talk, but not that this lock can activate your light. So that means it's a network protocol. It helps to connect these things, but they don't really understand each other. BLE is the same. You know how to communicate, but my lock cannot tell your washing machine to start. Why? I'm not sure why, but to start the washing program. So, and that is still the topic here. On the wall reader is the same, RFID, NFC, of course RS405, maybe sometimes IP, USB, clock data, gigant, and we have the door controllers here. I have to take some pictures from other brands. So, I hope you agree. I guess everything is well known, but you see there's really, today, interoperability really just on between the wall reader and the controller. Here we have some working standards. Sometimes something is missing regarding writing data, updaters, so there's still some lag, but something is working. So what we can say for my summary, that I'm really ready, physical interfaces, there are really the same interfaces we use nowadays. That was different years ago, where people, especially on cylinders, use different RF protocols. Today you see everyone has NFC, BLE, it's more or less the same. So, but these are not standardized on data level. So that means the RF gateway from Simon's Voss is not working with both cylinder and vice versa. And for all other brands the same. So on credential side, we know, okay, main thing is MyFIDESFI. We all know how to read it. There is an ISO level, but the data which is written there and how it's handled, it's not defined by that. We just know how to take a number on it. And only OSS delivers some kind of meaning behind the data. And then, of course, we have the same topic now again. I learned today, but the presentation was done yesterday, so I could not add the last things. I have a nice discussion with some colleagues here. On the wallets, we have the same. The wallet delivers a credential and a frame for that, and maybe something similar. But we come to the same topic again with OSS. As long as we have just a credential, the offline locks are out of the business somehow. So we need also to define a standardized way that the offline cylinders handlers can understand what is meant, what is the access permission. Maybe we will find a way, and I heard a lot of good things today, to integrate the OSS data model here, and then we have minimum the copy-paste solution to move from a card to a display with battery and card functionality, but to roll out it maybe over the air, which is already an improvement. And yeah, we see maybe Aliro will answer some questions. And of course, what we can say, we can of course use standards like in networks. Ethernet is a standard. We can use a switch which we can buy at much cheaper price than we can build. The same for us when we do wireless networking. We may go for thread and use standard thread devices. That is of course something which will help us, but which will not answer the interoperability part. It will just help to have less work on critical things on the connection of the devices. So because I'm fully out of time, I guess we can skip that because that was answered by Ivan as well. Also here I had a picture how we may integrate third-party system and then something in between. Because as long as we cannot speak directly to each other, we have to put something in between. And as I said, it's more or less on API level. If we cannot find standards on interfaces, then we have somehow here API, and of course you can have on the cylinder somehow also some kind of API, and then you can connect each other. That's the way, but there is of course what I learned in the last months, honestly, in our project, that even companies providing an API, there's a lot of lack of data missing. So that means maybe I get the person data, but if I get not the permission with the schedules, I cannot synchronize permission from here to here. So that means here we are still, I would say, far away from having everything on board. So that means here software manufacturers has to increase their API to provide the right data that people from the other side may be able to integrate. There are still a lot of restrictions, what I gathered in the last weeks and months. So, sorry, I'm out of time. That's it.